After weeks on the road, the familiar sight of my secluded cabin in the Appalachians brought a sense of relief. Nestled deep in the woods, it was my haven from the chaotic world outside. The tires crunched on the gravel driveway as I pulled up, the sun dipping below the horizon and casting long shadows across the clearing. I stepped out of the car, stretching my stiff limbs and breathing in the crisp mountain air. As I approached the front door, a strange sensation prickled at the back of my mind. I shrugged it off, chalking it up to the exhaustion, and unlocked the door. The cabin greeted me with a familiar sense of pine and old wood. Everything seemed in place at first glance, but something felt off. In the kitchen, I opened the fridge to grab a beer. The contents seemed to have shifted, but again, I brushed it off. As I turned to leave, I caught a glimpse of movement in the corner of my eye. I spun around, but nothing was there. Just a dimly lit hallway leading to the bedrooms. My heart raced a little faster. Shaking my head, I popped the beer open and took a long sip. Get a grip, I muttered to myself. I headed to the bedroom to unpack. The bed was made, but the pillows were positioned differently than I remember. The closet door was slightly ajar, and I knew I had closed it before I left. I pushed it shut, the soft click echoing in the silence. As I unpacked, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every creak of the old cabin seemed louder, more pronounced. I told myself it was just my imagination playing tricks on me after weeks of hotel rooms and highway rest stops. Later, as I sat by the fireplace, the flickering flames casting dancing shadows on the walls, the feeling of unease became unbearable. I kept glancing over my shoulder, convinced that something was there, just out of sight. I turned off the lights in the living room, leaving only the firelight. That's when I saw it. Just a flash of movement in the window. I stood up, peering into the darkness outside, but it was nothing. My pulse quickened, my skin prickling with fear. I backed away from the window, every instinct telling me to run, to get out of the cabin. The feeling of being watched grew stronger, more oppressive. I glanced around the room, every shadow seeming to twist and writhe. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw it again. A figure, just for a moment. And then it slid out of view. It was tall, impossibly thin, and it moved with an unnatural grace. Panic surged through me. I grabbed my phone, thinking of dialing 911, but of course there was no point. Not out here in the middle of nowhere. I backed towards the door, my heart pounding in my chest. The creature appeared again, this time at the edge of the fireplace's light. It was closer now, its eyes glinting in the firelight. It moved with a fluid, almost serpentine motion, slipping into the shadows whenever I tried to focus on it. I bolted for the door, flinging it open and stumbling out into the night. The darkness outside was absolute, the only light coming from the windows of the cabin. I heard movement behind me, the rustling of leaves, and I knew it was following me. I ran blindly into the woods, branches scratching at my skin, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to get away. The sound of footsteps behind me was relentless, never slowing. Finally, I burst into a small clearing and collapsed to the ground, my body trembling with fear and exhaustion. The forest was silent, the only sound my own labored breathing. I glanced around, but there was no sign of the creature. Had I lost it? As I sat there, trying to catch my breath, I realized the unsettling truth. My haven, my cabin in Appalachia, was no longer a refuge. Something had found its way inside. Something that could slip out of view just as quickly as it appeared. And now, it was out here, in the dark woods, watching me. Appalachia has always held an eerie charm. The dense forests and rolling hills filled with secrets older than memory. Lately, though, the charm had turned sinister. People had been going missing. Not just a few. Dozens. Entire families vanished without a trace, leaving behind homes that seemed frozen in time. Whispers of strange happenings spread like wildfire through the small communities nestled in the mountains. Concerned for my grandmother, I decided to visit her. She lived alone in a weathered old house deep in the woods. Wheelchair-bound but fiercely independent, she was the last person I wanted to lose to whatever horror was stalking our homeland. As I drove through the winding roads, the radio news anchor droned on about the disappearances. The stories felt surreal, like something out of a nightmare. Grandma greeted me with her usual warm smile, the scent of freshly baked bread wafting from the kitchen. "Oh, it's so good to see you, dear," she said, wheeling herself towards me. I hugged her tightly, but my mind was preoccupied. "Have you heard about the people going missing, Grandma? It's all over the news." She waved a hand dismissively. "Just rumors. You know how people love to talk." I frowned, unconvinced. As the evening wore on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Her house, usually a haven of comfort, felt suffocating. I decided to take a walk around the property, hoping the fresh air would clear my mind. It didn't. Instead, I stumbled upon something that made my blood run cold. Strange markings etched in the trees around her house. Symbols that looked ancient and foreboding. I found small, crudely constructed altars with offerings of animal bones and trinkets. Panic rose in my chest as I hurried back inside. "Grandma, what is all this?" I demanded, showing her a photo I'd taken on my phone. She glanced at it, her expression unreadable. "Just nonsense. Kids playing tricks. Kids don't carve symbols like these. What's really going on, Grandma?" She avoided my gaze, her hands trembling slightly. "It's nothing, dear. You're letting your imagination run wild." Her denial only fueled my suspicion. Determined to get to the bottom of it, I searched the house that night. In the basement, behind a stack of old boxes, I found a strange hidden door. It creaked open to reveal a narrow staircase descending into darkness. With my heart pounding, I descended the stairs. The air grew colder, the smell of damp earth filling my nostrils. At the bottom, I found a stone chamber lit by flickering torches. An altar stood in the center, adorned with candles and strange artifacts. The walls, they were covered in more of those unsettling symbols. Fear clutched my heart. This was no prank. This was real. I had turned to leave, but my grandmother's voice stopped me. "You weren't supposed to find this," she said, her tone icy. She was standing at the top of the stairs, a look of grim determination on her face. "Grandma, what is this place?" I asked, my voice shaking. Shockingly, she stood up and walked herself down the stairs, stopping just before the altar. "This is our legacy, dear. Our true heritage. I am the head of this cult, and you are meant to join us." I recoiled, disbelief and horror warring within me. No, this can't be real. You're not serious." She smiled, but it was a cold, unfeeling smile. "It is very real, and you will join us. It's in your blood." I backed away, shaking my head. "I can't. I won't." But she was relentless, her words weaving a spell of inevitability. She spoke of ancient powers, of protection for the community, of a destiny that couldn't be denied. Slowly, against my will, I felt myself being drawn in. The next few days were a blur of rituals and whispered secrets. The fear and distrust I felt towards my grandmother never truly left. But I felt I was compelled, coerced by something I couldn't understand. I learned that the entire neighborhood was in on it. An ancient cult that had thrived in secrecy for generations. Acceptance came slowly, but it came. I was one of them now. Part of the darkness that lurked in the heart of the Appalachians. The disappearances, the symbols, the altars. It was all part of our ritual, our way of maintaining balance and power. And as I stood by the altar, chanting with the others, I realized with a shuddering horror that I had become exactly what I feared. The sinister charm of the Appalachians had claimed another soul. The storm outside raged, rain pelting the windows and wind howling through the trees. I'd always found comfort in storms, the sound of rain against the roof like a lullaby. But tonight, the storm felt different, angrier, more menacing. I had invited my friend Jake over to play video games, hoping the evening would be a fun distraction from the gloomy weather. We sat on the floor of my bedroom, controllers in hand, the glow of the TV casting flickering shadows on the walls. Jake was winning, as usual, and he wasn't shy about rubbing it in. "Come on, is that all you got?" he taunted, a smug grin on his face. "I thought you were better than this." I tried to laugh it off, but his words stung. Before I could respond, we both froze. A distinct sound cut through the noise of the storm. The back door being jostled. My heart skipped a beat, and I saw Jake's eyes widen in fear. Did you hear that?" he whispered, his voice barely audible over the wind. I nodded, swallowing hard. "Yeah, it's probably just the wind." But deep down, I knew it wasn't. The door handle rattled again, more forcefully this time. We stood up, our game forgotten, and crept to the top of the stairs. The hallway was dark, the only light coming from the occasional flash of lightning. We listened intently, every muscle in our bodies tense. The house was silent, save for the storm outside. Then, the sound of the back door creaking open reached our ears. My blood ran cold. Somebody was in the house. Should we call the cops? Jake asked, his voice trembling. I shook my head, fear gripping me. We need to make sure it's not just the wind first. We tiptoed down the stairs, each creak of the old wood like a gunshot in the silence. We reached the bottom and peered into the kitchen. The back door was wide open, rain flowing in, pooling on the floor. There were muddy footprints leading from the door, but there was no sign of anyone. We should go back upstairs, I whispered, my voice shaking. Maybe they'll leave. Jake nodded. We turned to head back up. As we did, a loud crash came from the living room. We bolted up the stairs, panic fueling our footsteps, and slammed my bedroom door behind us. We pushed my dresser in front of it, barricading ourselves in. We huddled together, listening to the sounds of the intruder moving through the house. The footsteps were slow, deliberate, almost as if they knew we were listening. They moved through each room, pausing, as if searching for something. The footsteps reached the bottom of the stairs. We held our breath as they began to ascend, each step echoing like a death knell. The hallway outside my room was dark and silent, but we could hear the intruder knocking on each door, methodically working their way towards us. My heart pounding in my chest, each knock bringing them closer. They reached my door, and the knocking was soft, but insistent. I felt Jake grip my arm, his fear matching mine. It's over, freak! We're calling the cops! I screamed, my voice crackling with terror. There was a moment of silence. Then the sound of rapid movement, footsteps rushing down the stairs and out the back door. We waited, listening to the storm and our own ragged breathing. Finally, we mustered the courage to move the dresser and open the door. We crept downstairs, every shadow seeming to hide a threat. The back door was still open, rain pouring in. Muddy footprints tracked through the house, leading from room to room. They were erratic, almost frenzied, as if the intruder had been searching for something or someone. We checked the house, making sure it was completely empty before calling the cops. When they arrived, they searched the property but found no sign of the intruder. They assured us it was probably just a prank, someone looking to scare us during the storm. But the look in their eyes said they didn't believe their own words. Jake and I spent the rest of the night in the living room, too scared to sleep. The storm eventually passed, but the fear lingered, a shadow that wouldn't be dispelled. The house, once a place of safety, now felt tainted. We knew that whoever, or whatever, had been in our home would always haunt us. A reminder that sometimes the real horror is not what's outside in the storm, but what finds its way inside.
Thanks for joining. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, as well as leave a comment and let me know what you thought of everything. Also, if you have any story ideas or would like me to read any of your stories, please feel free to contact me at my email in the description. Once again, thank you for joining, and I'll catch you again next time here at Startle Volumes.